car park, which is a condition for us to obviously determine the detail for.
Yes, because you're going to try and work out where they would be in the most convenient place.
Yes.
Okay. So most of that was about the parking. I think the previous speakers have covered that. The other bit then is on the local roads, lay-bys for buses and so on. As I understand it, there is the lay-by out on one side going towards, I think, the station, but there isn't a lay-by on the side going out towards the east. And I think when I mentioned this to you before, is that currently there isn't much call for it because when the bus comes down from the station to the roundabout, Denmark Street is a difficulty would be for buses. So I understand that's how it is at the moment, but presumably that will be reviewed when the SDR opens and comes out by Tesco. That would be a route that people could go to bypass town centre. So it could be looked at that point, presumably.
That may be the case. I think, as we mentioned, yeah, you're right. Denmark Street you can only come south on. The town works in a one-way operation. If any bus was coming from the west to the east, it wouldn't be coming from the railway station because obviously the railway station link route works.
Right.
It doesn't operate.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
looking at obviously the benefit of a bus route and trying to make sure it's viable, we would probably operate a service in a clockwise direction. So if the SDR was open, it would probably go along the SDR, along Wellington Road, serve the train station, serve the town, and maybe loop back along London Road, back through the SDR again in a clockwise. There is the possibility to go the other way, but I think the way the town is set up, it probably makes more sense to maintain it as is.
With regard to the frequency of the buses, that's going to be down to demand anyway. If there's a big demand, I imagine the buses would increase the volume per day. The last point then is the performance area within the sports hall. So you can have musical performances or plays or acts or whatever they are. That's a good idea. It's also 400 seats, I think, can be pulled out from the electronically or manually from the wall. Can I just ask, where's the changing area for the performance side in the sports hall? Because the only changing area I could see was actually the wet area, the swimmers. Is there an idea where they would change?
There are wet and dry changing facilities as you would normally expect in a sports centre, and obviously if the sports hall was being used for performances it wouldn't be being used for sport at the same time, so I think there's clearly provision, and as I said, the leisure team have been involved in the brief and in reviewing the application of come from Tees and have been happy with what's proposed, that it will work for their needs.
The other points were already being covered by other questions, so that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we have Angus, then Philip, then Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's 5 questions, but in general, I'm delighted to see the range of facilities which we are proposing to include on this site. There's a lot of conditions, and it's a very prominent site, and I just wonder whether we feel that you as Chairman should be seeing some of the relevant ones like the trees and the materials and drainage as part of the clearing of the conditions. But your thought to that, Chairman. Condition 4 sets a fixed datum point, and I bear the scars of not having fixed one many years ago to Woodcray. Who decides where this datum point is? If I can come back to some other questions that didn't understand.
I think it's a point of surveying that you have that sort of, they are a fixed thing, aren't they? Rather than,
but we don't know where it is, it's not shown. Perhaps I could leave that thought with the officers.
I think there are sort of fixed points around the world that people do surveying from, aren't there? They don't sort of start from a random point. I'm not a surveyor, it's expert in that.
If you just purely a matter of clarification.
Yeah, it's above ordnance datum, so it's above sea level effectively.
Yes, but what is the fixed point on which we're basing the whole site? That's the point I'm making. But I'm quite happy to leave that outside of the meeting. But as I say, Woodcray was an example where we said there would be one, we didn't fix where it was, and chaos still ensues. Another one, and I asked this one outside the meeting about Peach Place. We're very keen on sustainable design and construction, and I wonder whether on this site, apparently there wasn't the space in Peach Place for recycling the on-site materials rather than having to try and take them all away and bring them all back.
Purely for clarification, please.
We haven't got space on site to recycle.
Thank you.
You don't have space.
No.
The last one is, I know there's been some concern about the Tilsley bench. I know it's not a planning thing, but I wonder, because of its prominence as an issue, whether we should add an information to say that a suitable site within a suitable place within the site will be found for that bench.
Sure, we can do that, but as it's a council application, we should hopefully have enough control over ourselves to make sure it's there.
I'm making the point so it is public, that it is recognised. That's the point.
Right, Philip?
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to address myself to the strange issue of these apartments that have been built for sale. Reading the notes, it looks as if they were always intended to be built for sale. So I don't quite understand why affordable housing ever came into it. I mean, affordable housing is for rented houses, not for houses we're going to sell. But at some stage we must have been thinking about renting them.
Oh, is that for this meeting?
Well, it's a question insofar as why are we building them in the first place if we're just building them for sale? What is the reason for them being built?
Can you change it? That is not for us, the planning committee, to decide on. The applicants put it forward and we have to decide whether it meets all policies or not.
More than that, actually, our policies say there should be residential as part of the mix on this site. It's very important to have them for the vitality and safety of the town centre and activity through the day and that sort of thing, so they're an important component of the scheme.
And what sort of people are going to live in these, may I ask, given that we've got this number of cycle racks on the ground floor, young, enthusiastic, athletic young people, or are they more likely to be sold to older residents who actually want a flat close to the town centre?
Well, I think that's a decision for whoever wants to buy them, really. They've got parking space, they have got cycling. The reason they're there is to help keep the site active 24/7, so you don't have a commercial facility that shuts down and becomes a poor space at night time. But in terms of who buys them, that's a market decision, that's not a decision for us.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, just a straight question. Has provision been made for charging points for electric vehicles on this site and perhaps any future sites? Only in the car park?
Well, they're already in the multi-storey car park.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of the 55 units of car parking space. I mean, is there likely to be any put into there for the residents to use rather than...
It's something more, it's obviously something we can look at. I think I'm not quite certain how, obviously, the applicant is going to allocate those 24 allocated spaces outside the 55 flats. So obviously, it would be difficult to kind of fix the space, a charging point in each of them now, but I don't have a problem with, the multi-storey car park has it, and obviously wherever they're going to be located inside the multi-storey car park, there can be the capability to obviously have that retrofitted within a couple of those spaces. Likewise, it could be quite easily added during the build to the front of those sites.
Wayne?
2 points. I think we should remind ourselves on 2 similar applications, one at High Street Walkway and one at Rectory Road, where the very same conditions we pondered over around the financial advisor giving us advice and reports. And I don't see any reason why this should be treated any different. The other point was around the cycle paths, and when we went on the visit on Monday, Chris, you gave a very good overview of some of the myths that surround the path. That there's people saying there's only 1 metre wide, but I think you said at Outfield Crescent there's 2 metres, and the only area where it would be a real bottleneck was right by the railway line, where those 2 cottages exist.
Correct.
But you also went into some more detail about what potential we could do on the other side of the road further into the future if it became available, or if land became available. Could you just explain that?
Yeah,
so that people could.
Yeah, it was more this side of the county, the southern side of Wembley Road. So basically, when people may recall back before the cricket club was developed and before the care home was developed, the footpath was very narrow, and I don't disagree, it was quite poor on both sides. Luckily, even though the cricket club was secured on an appeal, we did manage to secure a footpath improvement along the front of that site. Likewise, we then followed through with improvement fronting the care home. Unfortunately, the 2 cottages, that's a pinch point there, and beyond that, the cycleway from the town, from the railway station has been expanded towards this way through the junction. One benefit, we obviously couldn't seek 3.5 metres from the development at the time, they wouldn't obviously provide that. But if you do go along Wellington Road, there is no built development there is a good frontage from Wellington Road, which could enable the council in the future through either acquiring some land, potentially CPN, whatever measures we might need to address to deliver that. But everywhere, the borough is becoming more sustainable. There's a big focus on sustainable travel. My Journey, even central government's obviously releasing documents on sustainable travel, which is a big change that's never happened before. So things are changing, and we need to potentially look at those in the future. But that can be picked up through the public realm work the council does. It's our highway network, and we own it. Obviously, it's not for this applicant to obviously deliver and make that improvement outside of their site through where they don't have control.
Michelle?
Why aren't photovoltaic panels being actually used with this development? Some of the original ideas said that they would put them on there. My question further is that shouldn't Woking be making a good example of what we should be doing for climate change rather than excuses why we're not, if we're not doing it?
The policy requirement is to achieve a 10% saving in energy use and carbon through renewables and low carbon sources, and the development does achieve that through other means, such as the efficiency of the building and the heating systems that they're using. There is a condition to secure that to be worked up in more detail, and there is potential to incorporate some photovoltaics if necessary to meet that policy target, but it won't necessarily be requirement because there's more than one way you can get to that point.
But shouldn't we be a good example of what development should be rather than just trying to make the bare minimum?
Michelle, please. It meets the standards. This committee has to decide whether the application meets the policies. Was it a question that perhaps you want to put outside of the meeting with the executive member? Right, John.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to explore a bit more the residential parking. I'm somewhat perplexed that we're giving 11 visitors bays immediately outside the flats, and there's a 500-place car park behind it. Is that the understanding, or are they all going to be allocated for residents?
They're all the 24 outside the flats are allocated,
Right.
and then inside the car park, there's likely to be, through the condition, we'll work up how the allocation of the remaining 31 are identified. But the visitor parking, we're not intending to provide them any visitor parking. It will just be the visitors will come and use the multi-storey car park, which is next to the residential units.
Do you think it'd be a good idea to dedicate 2 of those at the front to disabled?
Well, it's difficult because if a disabled person doesn't move into one of the units, then there's 2 parking spaces that are left sat there unavailable for anybody to use because they're located in private ownership.
But that's the same problem wherever you have disabled parking. If you have disabled parking in supermarkets, you could argue that they're not being used, but the rest of the car park's gone up.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but on residential properties, as we've seen them come through before, affordable housing companies, sometimes they show a parking bay that's larger, allocated as disabled bay. If there's a person who moves into that property and requires one, then we can allocate it, and it can be managed by the management company. But on a private estate, and these units will be private, the parking will be private, we have no control over the highway, and if the person who allocates or purchases that property is disabled, then they have one outside their house regardless.
Okay, so they will have allocated bays within the multi-storey, is that what you're intending to do?
That's what obviously there's conversations are being had over about how they're allocated and how we locate them, or where they're located and how we manage that.
Are you saying they will have allocated spaces in park, in the multi-storey car park?
Sorry.
Are you saying they will have multi-storey car park spaces allocated to them?
Yeah, there's a parking management plan that we can work to identify how we can apply them and remove them, similar to how we do this with parking permits.
Now, they will be controlling parking permits. Will those parking permits carry a cost?
That is part of, I guess, what the parking management strategy will hold, and I guess the negotiations through the developer and also the car park owners, which are us.
That's very unusual in a residential development, to have a situation where, especially in Woking, where you're negotiating, it probably happens in the middle of London, where you're negotiating with people the cost of parking when the parking doesn't really meet the standard. I know what you're going to say about the town centre, but it doesn't meet our standard. Surely we should insist that this parking in that multi-storey that's allocated is free.
Sorry, free to the residents?
To the residents, yes.
Yes, it may well.
No, you're doing about saying it may well be. I want to know whether it will be.
Well, it will be, but how it's managed between, I guess, the council who operate the car park and obviously the developer, obviously, that's the part that obviously needs to be finalised, which is why the conditions in place to give us the flexibility to manage how those spaces are allocated.
Okay, but they will get free parking in the multi-storey car park, which will be allocated to the flats.
The ones that are allocated, once they've got that space, it will be allocated
Free.
once they've got it, but obviously how it gets there
Well, that's
is
all
the
we need.
negotiation.
That's all we need for the record. It will be free. Yeah. The other thing that did concern me is there really not a bus that goes there on a Sunday?
Currently not, no.
Well, surely if commercially for us, opening a leisure centre and not having a bus running on a Sunday is a bit daft, isn't it?
I don't run the bus element, obviously, but in terms of the viability for a bus service, we need to make sure that there's people who are going to use it. Running a bus service to and from there to, it could be anywhere, to Woodley, to Early, to to the outskirts of the borough. The point is, I think we need to identify is that there are houses coming in North Oakham, there's houses coming in South Oakham. There's houses coming in South Oakham, and obviously there'll be public transport strategies that are identified. South Oakham and the SDR will be the one that brings the higher frequency of buses past this site.
I suppose I'd ask how you feel about that financially, that you won't have a bus running there on a Sunday.
Oh, I was going to say, what we need to bear in mind though, buses we've got the Leopard, which comes down Station Road,
Right.
which goes out obviously to Arbroath, to and from Woking, etc. The station is 450 metres away, which is basically inside the kind of the walking distance that we'd expect. We've also got Broad Street, which is also another 450 metres away, which has buses serving it. I don't have the details. I know there's one here, thank you. But in terms of where the buses stop and start for all the services, I can't, without obviously reading that, couldn't state exactly where they stop and start. On which days.
I understand what you say, but I live near a school, and I can tell you, people get in their cars to drive 200 metres to take the kids to school. So 450 metres, I mean, that's half a kilometre nearly. That's a long way for somebody to walk with 3 or 4 kids.
I understand what you're saying, but it's in the town centre location, which is sustainable. It has modes of transport that come to it, including the rail, so we can have people from further distance, but it's not this site, the size of the site doesn't generate the requirement to provide a bus service when it's already located in a sustainable area.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, members, any more questions, clarifications on any of it? Right. Listening to what you've been saying, I got the feeling you did want an informative for the park bench, even though it is a council application. Am I getting nods that we want that as an informative? We would like that as an informative then. Right, and then coming to Angus, you did mention that you thought some of the conditions should come to the chair to have a look at them before they're eventually signed off. Were there any in particular you had in mind, because there are a good number of conditions here?
Leave that to your judgment, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Angus. It's just that we need to put something down for it for this meeting.
You want something more than just saying the appropriate ones, do you, Chairman? I did mention the materials, the landscaping, trees, and perhaps drainage being another item which was exercised.
Yep, so Chair, we can just put that as part of the resolution to grant. That conditions come back to the Chair, Vice Chair, ward members, and who else? That was it, as part of the decision.
Okay. Okay, are members happy with that? Malcolm?
It was just something I had down here, and then John raised it again. It's the mechanism by which people will get into and out of the car park without having to pay, because it's done by a number plate recognition at the moment, and then you use your credit card and so on. If you're a resident, you would still be expected to pay when you come out, unless there's a mechanism. So I'd be interested to know if there is a mechanism already.
Yes, there is a mechanism. So as a user of that car park, I have an annual pass. So basically I drive up to the barrier, it recognises my number plate, so as long as the number plate of the operator is on the system, it allows you in, it allows you out, I don't touch the pay machines, the car park knows that I'm in there and I'm entering next to it.
Right, members, we're absolutely done? Yes. Okay. We have the recommendation then for approval, which is set out on page 13 with the conditions and the informatives. And then in the members' update, there is an update to the recommendations. So all those in favour, please show. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those against. And abstaining, I'm thinking 1. So that application is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Right, we could have time to like to carry on with the agenda. We do have a new officer sitting next to me on my left, so I'll just ask him to introduce himself.
Good evening, I'm Justin Turvey, I'm the lead officer for development management.
So the next item then is agenda item 5 on page 79. It's the land between 24 and 25 Croix Square. It's a full application for the erection of a 3-bed dwelling with associated facilities and 4 car parking spaces. This is a C2. It's before the committee, as the applicant is Woking Housing Limited. The case officer is Mark Croucher, and I shall hand over to him.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just give a brief presentation. I'll just start with the location plan. As you can see, the site is outlined there in red. I'll show you the site plan in a moment. This is the access to the site, which is onto Gorwick Square. You can also see the railway line, which is to the right of the slide. This is just an aerial photograph showing the site in a bit more context. The site is just circled in red there. And once again, you can just see the properties at the front onto Gorwick Square. You can see that the existing site is greenfield. Moving on to some photos. This is a photo of the site entrance, and you can just see it in the middle of the slide there. To the right of the picture you have 24 Gorwick Square, and to the left you have 25. So the access takes you through into the site, and that's where the proposed units will be. These are some photos actually still on the site. The one in the top left is looking to the rear, and you can see a large oak tree there, which is mentioned in my report, and it will be retained and will be protected. Moving to the bottom right, that's looking to the west at to the side elevation 24 Gorwick Square, and the access to the site is just off shot to the right there. This is looking the other side, this is looking to the east. If we start perhaps with the bottom right one, that just shows the existing boundary treatment, which is in between the site and 25 Gorwick Square, and the top left one just shows the side gable of 25 Gorwick Square. This is just the site layout, and as you can see, the access is right in the top left of the slide there, and that's where the proposed vehicular access will be onto Gorwick Square. The bungalow will sit in the middle there. You can just about make it out. The pink sort of triangular shapes are the sort of arc of outlet from the existing properties, and it just shows how they're orientated and where their general outlet falls. And because they're sort of angled away from the site, there isn't a concern with overlooking implications. And just one further point, you can see the parking to the front of the property there. These are just the elevations. It'll be a single-storey bungalow with fairly simple vernacular. This is a street scene elevation, and this is just to demonstrate how the property fits into the scale of what's there. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than the existing properties, and it will just show what parts of the building will be visible. The bungalow will be set quite a bit further back. Obviously, that's a flat perspective, so it will look even smaller than what's shown there. And this is just a floor plan, and it just shows 3 bedrooms with en-suites, which will be for the future residents. You can see in the top left there'll be staff accommodation. The main living space is to the top of the slide, and there's also a garden room, and there'll also be a garden area which meets our standards. So just to confirm, Chairman, the application is recommended approval for the subject to the conditions and informatives in the report, and also subject to a legal agreement to ensure that there will be appropriate mitigation for reptiles that are currently found on the site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one registered speaker, which is Darren Toes from WHL. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words in support of the above application. The proposed scheme provides a much needed affordable care support provision for 3 disabled young adults known to adult social care. These 3 clients have varying degrees of learning and physical disability requiring 24-hour care support, and whose needs have been accounted for within our design. The site is previously undeveloped piece of land in the corner of a residential cul-de-sac, offering an excellent learning opportunity. The proposed single-storey building aims to respect the existing urban grade, whilst remaining subservient to the surrounding 2-storey buildings that surround the site. The elevations are designed to be contemporary in a contextual manner, acknowledging the adjacent built environment. In terms of layout, we responded to the future needs of the residents, providing private accommodation and communal supported living. We'd aim to develop out at the earliest opportunity on the basis that obviously we gain planning approval, and we will be looking at starting the site in spring 2018. We hope we look on this application favorably. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, members who would like to kick off? While members are thinking, I shall ask a question. What is the boundary treatment for the driveway? Because just looking at the photograph, there seems to be cement on one side and nothing on the other, and it is very long.
Yeah, at the moment you can see a sort of a close boarded timber fence, probably about a metre in height to the right, and then there's a chain link fence to the left. And part of the site there is open with 25 guard square. There is a condition recommended for future landscaping, so that will be secured as part of that condition in terms of how that's treated.
Okay. Anyone else want to know at all? Yeah, John's just wants to ask.
I think it's only right, proper that I declare that I don't have actually interested, but I'm a director of one of the council's owned property companies, so I don't think I'm going to take part in this. I don't think it would be fair, so I'm going to step back from this one. Thank you.
Right, I shall go to the vote then, members, if really is no more questions. Right, the recommendation is set out on page 79 with the number of conditions. There are no updates in the members' update, so those all in favour, please show. Right, that's all of us except for John, who was abstaining totally from that application. Thank you very much. Right, we come to the last application of the evening then, which is agenda item 56 on page 95. It's units 62 to 67, Sutton Business Park. It's a full planning application for the redevelopment of the site for a B2 and B8 industrial use with associated car parking and landscaping. It's before the committee. It's a major application. We did go on a site visit in 2005, and most of the committee, including myself, and case officer is Graham Vaughan, who I'm handing over to.
Thank you, Chair. The site is located off Sutton's Park Avenue in Earley within a major development location and a core employment area. It's bounded by the A329 to the east, the Reading Paddington rail line to the north, and other sections of Business Park to the south and west. The proposal is for the erection of a B2, B8 used cars building located centrally in the site. Car parking will be located to the south as well as landscaping buffer. To the north of the building would be a further car parking area and the service area. Currently, the site is vacant, with the previous buildings being demolished as a result of a previous planning permission. Adjacent to the site are offices which reflect the typical design of the park from when it was originally built. And to the south of the site there are further offices. As the site is within a core employment area, the type of use proposed is encouraged by local planning policies. Although the building would be smaller in size compared to the previously consented scheme from 2015, it should be noted this is not going to be implemented, and the current application would result in occupied buildings on the site. The building will be designed as a modern interpretation of industrial buildings, which is different to the surrounding offices. Nonetheless, this is acceptable in this area and is similar to other redevelopments on Sutton's Business Park. Acknowledge the building is of a substantial size and will be notable particularly from the A329. However, given the highways land and landscaping surrounding the site, it is considered the impact of the building is mitigated. In respect to residential amenities, the nearest residential property is over 150 metres away and therefore no harmful impact would occur. With regard to traffic impact, it's been demonstrated no significant impact on the highway network would occur, and it will be lower than the previously consented use. Parking provision has been increased and accords with the parking standards. It also gives greater flexibility for B2/B8 use was to change. Subject to conditions, there are no harmful impacts identified in any other material considerations, and with regards to the members' update, there are minor changes proposed to plan numbers within certain conditions. As such, subject to the conditions set out in the officer report and members' update, the application is recommended for approval.
Members? John.
There's just one question. The operating hours of this, I guess, will be 24 hours. That's
That's correct, and similar to the majority of the park.
That's fine. Now that leads me on to the next question. Would you have to have trucks going in and out of there at night with reversing alarms? 150 metres isn't very far in the dead of night when everything's quiet. I mean, is there anything we can do to mitigate that? Maybe turn the actual alarm off and just have flashing lights?
You would have to demonstrate that that is harmful in the sense of 150 metres, and there will be other buildings in between that. Also, as I said, other businesses in the park can do that without any restriction. So we would have to justify that in a planning sense.
Okay. Michelle?
I would just say, in addition to what Graham just said about the distance to residential, it is bounded by an elevated A road and the mainland railway, as well as that. So it's a significant distance.
We could use those hush ones that go shh, 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 shh. We've used those in a few other places that are near residential areas. Or just suggest it as an informative.
I think, as you say, near residential areas, as we've said, it's 150 metres away with other buildings in the way.
Any other?
No, sorry. The only thing I would say is, you know, the site where we approved is the drive-through, Costa, etc. I mean, we would have to be consistent with that, whatever we applied here. So if we haven't applied it there, which is much closer to residential.
Yeah. Do you mean applying a restriction on the lorry movements and the sounds, or?
Yes, well, both, because this is further away. So if we're going to apply something here, and we haven't applied it there.
We're not applying it here.
No, sorry, if we were thinking of.
Yeah, but then it's dependent on what's being applied for. So what we put forward for that application was for an A1 retail building and an A3, A5 drive-through coffee building. So it's a totally different use to a B2, B8 industrial. So you'd have to just say, why do you need it in planning terms for this type of use, given the area that it's in and how far away it is? So I would say that it's not directly comparable to what we've already approved.
Unbelievable.
Fair enough.
Are there any other questions? None at all? Okay, we will go to the vote then. The recommendation is set out on page 95 to approve it with the conditions. There is amendments or changes to conditions in the members' update. All those in favour, please show. And that application is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, members. Right.